mentioned, like Catherine said, I'm the public works director. We do stormwater and transportation. So if there are any projects related to that, we also handle maintenance of the village as well, and then coordinate improvements that are funded through that maintenance district, or that public improvement district. Just got a couple topics to talk about today. If you want to flip through the slides as we go, I'll give you an update on the roundabout. I think you all know where this is at, right down there at the intersection of Beach and Midnight Pass, where we've got the full intersection. Go ahead to the next slide.
Okay. Is that?
So this is what we told you it would.
Sorry.
Oh, that's fine. It's the general layout that last time I was here was probably a couple years ago, at least last year. So we talked about options on whether it would be a roundabout or a signalized intersection. And the county commission hasn't given some public outreach. The county commission made a decision to put a roundabout in this location rather than signalized intersection. Now that's what that was the preliminary kind of concept plan. And if you go to the next slide, some of the things that are benefits of this roundabout are listed here. The signal, having a signal in a location is a liability, especially during storm events or power outages. Then you have to have some of the means to manage the traffic movement at the intersection if it goes out. So they go on the flashing if they still have power. Sometimes they just go out when everything's disconnected. Like we had during Hurricane Irma, we had many intersections that went out. We ended up going out and putting up stop signs at the intersections. So that having a roundabout, that one of the primary benefits of that is it works regardless if you have power. Some aesthetic things as well. The aesthetics of the roundabout generally would probably look a little better than the signalized intersection you see out there. Good things. Overall delay is.
Want that?
Let's go back to the other one.
Okay.
With the roundabout, if you're familiar with them, you don't have to stop, right? Unless there's someone in the roundabout. So it generally, you don't have to stop and wait for 60 seconds for the light to flip. It has a much better volume movement of traffic through that intersection rather than the signalized sequences that happen there. And then the points of conflict are significantly reduced with the roundabout. What we found is on all our roundabouts, you significantly, if not completely, eliminate fatal or very severe crashes. Because the crashes that do happen are generally some kind of side swipe activity. They're not the head-on or the T-bone type intersections or collisions that happen that result in fatalities and severe injuries. And then lastly is we don't need any additional right-of-way for this project. The property is actually to the south of the existing intersection. They are owned by the county, and that Remax building, actually some of the parking that they're managing there is actually in the county right away at that location currently. So the next slide. This is just some concept looks at the roundabout from a street view that were provided previously in the next slide.
Pardon, I have a question.
Yes, sir.
It looks like that center circle is, it's got nice trees on it, then it's got some stones, and it's got some pavers or something on the outside. Couldn't we use that more effectively for more traffic to get through there? It looks like we're constraining the roadway by having such a large circle.
Yeah, I'll show you what it's actually going to look like here. Yeah,
less bad than that.
Well, not necessarily, and there's a point to that. But I'll show you when we have the graphic that's the current design phase. You can go to the next slide. So I showed this before we had design contemplated. This was a picture I found on the internet. Something that talking to stakeholders and Bob and Catherine, there was a real desire to have the westbound movement or the southbound movement along Beach Road to have that left turn like it does now. So you can see the two lanes that come. This would be looking down Beach Road from the park down towards Midnight, down towards Sticky Point. So that dedicated left, instead of having just one lane there, you can get right into that left turn and come around. All the through traffic has middle lane to get through. So these are also benefits that happen here. The traffic calming. You don't have the quick startups or the fast slowdowns at a roundabout. Generally, everybody comes in, you yield. When there's congestion, there's going to be congestion, whether it's a roundabout or a signal. That's just part of the traffic. The fire station will have access. That's being designed in movement, so that new fire station there. And go ahead to the next slide. These are some of the disadvantages and advantages that we talked about with the roundabout versus the signalized intersection. And this is rehashing everything we had already talked about, just as a reminder. And we can, Catherine has a copy of all this, so if you want to see these in more detail and take a look at them, she can provide that information. Go ahead. So this is what we currently have. We're at a 30% design status. That's actually going to be completed in May. This is a preliminary drawing they gave to me. So as you can see, the center section, like I said, is large. It's intended to be large. And what that does, instead of allowing cars to come through a straight path, they have to divert, which then slows down and provides that traffic calming effect. So the outer rim of that is actually mountable. So when you have large trucks that come through, it's designed so large trucks ramp up on the exterior of that apron, so they can maneuver around the roundabout without having. So semi trucks, some fire trucks that have that long wheelbase, they would need to mount up on that. But typically,
Sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. The cars will come around. So some features of this, you do see that the two lanes, the through lane and the left lane on the west side or the south side of the roundabout on the bottom of that here. And then you have 10-foot sidewalks on all of the approaches. That's double the width of the existing sidewalks. That should be about 5 feet. The crosswalks are on the outside of the roundabout. We haven't really determined what the actual control is for those crosswalks. You have the rapid rectangular flashing beacons that are down Beach Road. There's also another type of pedestrian control called a hawk signal. It's a high intensity activated crosswalk, and that's an actual signal that goes up that turns red and green and has some flashing sequences to it as well. If you are familiar with the Legacy Trail, there's a few of those on there.
Yep.
And they also have put those in at the roundabouts in downtown Sarasota, if you've seen those as well. We haven't really gotten to the point to fully evaluate that yet, as far as which will go in. Some are more effective in different locations. Yes, ma'am.
We live in White Sands Village, which is right on the hopefully right corner there. Right now, we have backup ever, other than maybe an hour or so when church get out.
Right.
So my first question is, why are we having this? My second question is, we now have traffic lights, so we cross the beach as do many, many people daily. And we have a real safe way to get across the beach, to the beach. But I don't understand, first of all, if you could point out where we would now have to go to get across to the beach, and you're not decided yet on how you're going to get people across the beach safely. Is that what
No, it's the control at the crosswalk. So right now you have a signal that goes a red, green, yellow, right? And then you have a countdown. So it's you can see these areas here are where the crosswalks, the rectangular, the square with the rectangular shape on each side. Those are where the crosswalks will be. It's really the signals at those crosswalks that will alert traffic to either stop or be notified that there's someone that's crossing the crosswalk there. So it will be completely safe and protected. But so if you're coming across from what your development there, you would come either across on the right side and cross there, or on the top of the graphic there where you see it, and then very similar to how you're crossing the road now.
So we might actually have a red light rather than just these flashing lights.
Potentially, yes.
Because
There's pluses and minuses to both. And as we move forward with design, we'll have a better evaluation of those implements.
like I say, I really don't understand the whole process because we don't have a traffic backup there.
Well, and that's great. And actually, if there isn't congestion, this thing works much better if there isn't congestion, because traffic just keeps moving. It's at a low speed and the traffic moves through. If there isn't someone in the roundabout, you don't have to stop. You have to yield to traffic in the roundabout. But it just keeps traffic moving much more efficiently. So you don't have the stops, you don't have the starts, and you have a problem with the noise. A lot of that's from cars starting up and getting up to speed. On roundabouts, you don't have that.
Can I just add to what she was saying?
Gene, I have my hand up here.
The only time we have backup is when you're going south or north on Beach Road.
Yep.
So my question is, I understand your point that it slows down the traffic, so it's not as dangerous. But I don't see it as being dangerous right now. My point being is, it almost seems to me, this is personal, I'm not an expert, it's an expense that we could have used the money somewhere else, rather than having a roundabout in an area where we really don't have a problem.
Well, one thing with this is that this is going to be funded by the Florida Department of Transportation. I know it's all our tax dollars, but these are dollars that would have gone somewhere else.
Well, I understand that. A year ago, I asked the same question, and the reason we're doing it is because the money's there. I mean, that's typical government.
No, it's actually, technically, this is the
So what's the
better,
benefit going to be?
this is the better alternative from a transportation technical analysis. This is a better alternative to a signalized intersection. And, you know, we can provide you all the rationale that we're in the advantages and disadvantages. But this is what we're moving forward with. I know.
right.
Roundabouts are fairly
right, I've got-
polarized. Some people like them, some people don't like them.
You know, I want to make sure, because some people had written to us asking about it, not understanding that this is already in play. And there was hope that they were going to be able to make comments that would change that. What I think we're talking about now is going to happen, but how can it be something that is actually going to be beneficial in a better way than what it was designed? That's why there's money allocated, correct, for new design features, correct? Because that's the other thing. People were worried that some of the money that was going to come from our penny tax and things like that to improve something that they may not have been happy about to start with. But one of the things I wanted to focus on, and I think this is the part that I hear the most about, is the pedestrian issues, because so many people walk and bicycle and are concerned about how, and this is one of the biggest worries. So maybe that's one of the focus areas. I see a lot of head nods. That might be the best thing to go with right now about how pedestrians are going to be able to use this in a way that they feel safer than they might otherwise. Because we are increasing, so I want to make sure we talk about that.
Got two people online that also want to ask
Okay.
questions.
All right, so maybe that's a good start about the pedestrians. That people, I could see a lot of head nods here, and they may not see that on there. That could be one of the questions.
Mike, do you want to go next, or Nancy?
Yeah, I'll go. Hey, Spencer, Mike here. I see here at the roundabout, this new drawing is taking away one of our entrances to our office. That's number one. Number two, when you come around the roundabout, people speed up coming out of a roundabout, as you know, and then the entrance is right there. So I'd say we need to put the other entrance back into our parking lot so we don't have people getting rear-ended every day. And the other thing is, are they going to add signs at the main bridge as part of this project when the county's public parking lot is at full capacity?
Okay, the first question, Mike, I hope you're doing well. The
Doing great,
access
thanks.
to that parking lot at the southeast corner on this drawing, and with different orientations we're like, we'll have to talk to you about that. There are some issues out there with the right of way and current use. So we'll need to coordinate with the property owner there to make sure that everyone's on the same page moving forward. And this is, like I said, this is at 30% design. It is going to be a roundabout, but this is a preliminary design. And the end result, there is some outreach that has to happen between now and when we get to a final plan. Your second question is, the county commissioners did incorporate a $1 million project into the Surtax 4, which I'll talk a little bit more at the end, program. And Surtax 4 is something that will be voted on by the community this coming November. And so those signs, the message signs for both the South Bridge and the North Bridge in those areas, that is the intent to install those and have those regularly counting traffic parking spaces in the main beach park for pedestrians or for drivers to know what status is at the parking lot during the day.
So if they don't see a sign that.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Is there a way for them to get out of traffic, or by the time they see it, are they already?
No, ideally it's before they cross 41. That would be the intent is, you know, in addition to that, there's also efforts going on to increase some kind of level of transit operation, whether it be the trolley or some kind of park and ride option to get people on and off the island without driving as well. That's one of the things we've been working on as a large kind of stretch goal right now, is to look at options to improve mass transit onto the island so there's less cars, right? So if people keep driving on the island, all it does is add more congestion. If we can get people on and off the island without driving, that's something that we're also working on.
I'm gonna ask Nancy, did you?
Wait,
have-
Spencer.
Mike, your
I
turn.
need to
have
clear
the
up
floor.
this question. I have to clear up the question. So I understand it correctly. What you're saying is it won't be part of this project, but hopefully the county are talking about voting in $1 million to add these signage, right?
Absolutely, and it could be depending on the timing of when the approval comes through for that referendum, if it does, and those dollars, it could happen consecutively.
Thank you. That'd be very neighborly.
Nancy, did you want to go next?
Thank you. When the fire trucks need to leave the firehouse for an emergency, they'll need to stop the traffic. Are you planning to put a traffic light in front of the firehouse?
There will be an implement to allow the fire engines or ambulances to navigate the roundabout uninterrupted, yes.
Okay, we have a question in the back.
Yes, I do. I have a few comments to make about roundabouts. First of all, roundabouts have been utilized and approved in Europe. The Americans traditionally do not like them. I think you make reference to that. Item number two is that most roundabouts, the one that fulfills the criteria is one which is designed by, I believe, two gentlemen. It was Overton and Blackmore, or Osterman and Blackmore. That's the roundabout that seems to be the most functional, because the initial roundabouts that were placed in the United States of America were wrong. And that's why people objected to them. And then they subsequently changed it to this particular design. With regard to roundabouts, they're not the be all and end all, sir. I kind of disagree with that. Roundabouts have a big problem for pedestrians. Roundabouts have a big problem for bicyclists. Roundabouts also have a problem, as the gentleman over there on the other side of the room stated, you know, his property is right on the edge of where he would have to get in and out, and it destroys his property. My next comment would be this, is that in a roundabout, I'm not saying this one in specific, there are others planned for Siesta. I live on Siesta, and I live at an intersection that has been notoriously famous, okay, where I think there is going to be they want to make a planned roundabouts, Title Midnight Pass Road. I have lived there since 1983, sir. I'm a doctor of medicine, okay? I have practiced medicine in this town up until, full time, I should say, up until about a year ago. But in any case, I now do part-time work. But what is important about this is that prior to the inception of that stoplight, there were accidents and every weekend. And they had stoplight, they had signs, etc., things posted, so on. Once the stoplight got put up, the accidents stopped. I can't even remember when there was the last accident. I know very well about the accidents because many people were injured. My house is close. I went outside to see if I could be assistance. And there have also been deaths of people as a result of that intersection that was not covered by a stoplight. Stoplight served its function and it works very well. I don't understand why with the exception that maybe county will save $5,000, by putting a roundabout in at that intersection, what the impetus is in order to place a roundabout in that intersection. And then one last comment is that it is a well-known fact also that in roundabouts, if you have a big truck against you, because you've got the inner circle and the outer circle, and if you have a large truck in front of you, that is very causative of accidents. And the last thing I will tell you is this, is that this community has, without bringing any offense to anyone, in this room or anywhere, we have older folks that live here. They're not familiar with it. They weren't trained to drive in roundabouts. Even the younger people weren't trained to drive in roundabouts. If you look at the driver's manual in the state of Florida, nothing is mentioned about the driving in roundabouts. So you have an ignorant population that knows nothing about this type of situation of how to manage themselves and their vehicles safely in that type of environment. And it's something that needs to be really taken to heart, because ultimately, what's going to happen, the purpose of all of this, Siesta Key, as I have seen it, I have lived here since 1983. I have seen this Siesta Key from being a wonderful resort community to now being this place that's completely overrun by traffic, overrun by spring breakers, power drinkers, you know, and so on and so forth. And the point is, they're not gonna need the warnings of it. And some of the older folks who can't read the signs, they're not gonna heed the warnings of it. And you will see plenty of accidents and unfortunately, people getting hurt. So I don't think roundabouts are the all and end all. Now, I think
I'm
that
gonna
in a
stop.
community where there is less volume, maybe they'll serve a purpose. But in those specific areas, where you've got the village on one end, the beach on the other end, two bridges, and you've got 2-lane roads, Highland Avenue, Midnight Pass Road, Beach Road, they're all 2 lanes. It's impossible. And God forbid, if you need an emergency service, you're not going to get it. The residents of Siesta Key who live in these bordering areas are residents of the Key. We pay taxes. And we live here, and our tax dollars are not going to the fact of where the county commission should be protecting us and thinking ahead of this.
Okay,
And
thank
that's
you.
all I have to say.
Yeah, we'll have to stop because, like I said before, we asked him to come and he agreed to do it despite having another engagement, which means he has to get off the key at one of the worst times of day, as most people know. And what I would like to know is I actually have never heard, Spencer, that we were doing the roundabout anyplace else but in that. That's what you're here for, is the one that we know about. There's, as far as we know, there is no other roundabout plan. Is that correct?
There it is.
How about I get to that in a minute?
Yeah, because
Oh, good.
I want to talk about what we do know about and what we had some questions
I got
about.
a couple questions.
Yeah, and we've not been addressed with any other alternatives, so thank you. Go ahead, Spencer.
No, look, like I said, the roundabouts are polarizing. There's over 20 roundabouts in the county, not including the ones that the city or the DOT is doing. And I think that every one we built has had similar consternation prior to. And you know, this is what I do in the county. We serve this. I don't hear a lot of complaints after the fact. So I'm not asking you to just push the add to leave button, but let's get this done and see how it works. And there's always ways to tweak things once they get constructed.
Just a quick question regarding the roundabout that's planned to be at the University of
I'll give you that in a minute.
No, I do have a question. It seems like this is too late to say anything about this right now.
Right.
So for the next one, is it possible to have, say, the measures the same to be able to know what will be happening?
Yes, no doubt. Yeah. Yes, sir.
Mr. Anderson, I just want to follow up what the doctor said. I lived in DC, and the roundabouts in DC are called circles.
Right, but different. Right?
And the circles go above the ground, and they have an underpass the circle for the straight line. You have to understand that Siesta Key has many, many people from rural areas that never saw a roundabout or a circle. And they have no idea. In DC, the person in the circle or the roundabout has the right of way. Now, I drive here and I see people pulling out in front of cars that are within the roundabout. Would it behoove you to put signs up saying people in the roundabout have the right of way? Because there are going to be accidents. I've seen it, and I came close to seeing very much. And believe me, in Montana, Oklahoma, Indiana, in rural areas, people never heard of a roundabout, and they don't know how to handle it. I think that's about it. But I think the doctor's right. I mean, I think there are better ways to spend money than to put roundabouts with a traffic light would suffice.
Spencer, do you want to go on?
Yeah.
We have a program, as you all know. There's some things here we need to get to, and I do want to end on time. And I have a feeling we're going to be talking about this again. So for now, if we can focus on what I invited you here for. I think your comments, you should write them to us and we should share them, especially if there's some that are similar enough about whatever's coming next, because we've never had a conversation about whatever else might be planned in the future. We just never had that. So I think it'd be worthy, put that in an organized way and address that when we can. Does that make sense right now?
Absolutely. So our schedule,
I was gonna say, one question that might be helpful to Spencer is, he told us the county commission has approved the roundabout. It's a done deal as far as they're concerned on roundabout. But the issue that's outstanding and he's still open to is where the pedestrian crosswalks want to be and how are they signalized? Is that true?
right, how they're signaling.
Yeah.
The location of them is pretty much,
Pretty well.
pretty
Okay.
much. I got it.
Whether it's gonna be a stoplight or a flashing light or what is it? And all of us have opinions on that. The other one is, how are bicycles going to navigate this? And maybe we have to have another session on that. But I'd like to give him some feedback right now. So everybody that wants to have this roundabout, raise their hand. Everybody that doesn't want this roundabout, and wants it left like it is, raise their hand.
So.
Who made this decision for us that we're getting around?
Well,
It's already a done deal.
Commission did. And
Okay.
they took a survey and they found 37% of the people wanted a roundabout.
37. 37%.
37. They wanted, 33% of the people wanted left like it is. And another 33% wanted it to be a signalized T intersection. And the county commission deemed that to be that the majority of the people wanted it as a roundabout. You know, could I just say statistics and statistics?
We're gonna wrap this up because I do not want us to miss the other things we have to
Swift
talk about.
Road,
Yeah.
Swift Road and Siesta Drive. When you're on the roundabout, you do not have the right of way. Of all the trainings you've ever had where you have the right of way when you're on the roundabout, the exception is Swift Road.
It is different, yes. You're right.
Oh my God, I have almost got hit twice. So people, like you say, do not read signs. So cars come around, supposedly I have the right of way, which I really don't think I should, but I do. Well, that doesn't have anything to do with this. I know that,
Not
but
with this issue though, right now.
it's supposed to be a little levity, you know.
Let's stay on target.
Crazy things that are going on.
Spencer, you got some information from people here. It wasn't what I expected. I expected we would have different kinds of questions. Mine in particular relate to pedestrians. And how will this design protect people on bicyclists and buses? Because I've seen there's some different, this is not a design project yet. This is what the money's for, is to design. So if we have an opportunity to do something that's better, we should think about that. And I would really like to know about the pedestrian issue.
Stoplights up to let people, pedestrian lights to let people on bicycles cross, we're still stopping.
Right, and that's why that's why the actual treatment of that hasn't been determined.
It has
See
not-
what
this is
exactly
what-
is necessary.
See, when we said that there was money allocated to complete and to do some additional design work, all the things everybody's saying tells us why we need that, right? That we
Please
does
do
need to do more
record, my
design work
battery's
on it,
running low.
so that it makes sense.
Okay.
to
I don't
people
think
And then you
that
can
hear
send me
that
what
these
you
are
have and I'll put it together.
And I
with this.
agree with you. People get really scared. The only benefit I found to a roundabout is when I miss my turn, I still have a second chance. I just keep going around, and I found that in England where they are crazy on here. So I'm with you on the fact that it is a scary thing sometimes to join in regularly moving traffic and then go, now what? So this is going to be an interesting process, and I have a feeling we'll be talking again.
Sure we will. Absolutely.
Ask one other question with the roundabout. Our parking lot for our complex comes right out on the top part of that picture.
Yes.
And and as with the church behind us and a number of other complexes, opportunity to get out of our parking lot is when the light is red. And if there's a constant flow of traffic, we're not gonna have any time where we can safely drive out of our parking lot as with St. Boniface and other complexes up that road. And how are you gonna handle that issue?
Good question.
Yeah, I can get an answer to that for you.
The same with golf and
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
No, I will.
Okay.
I want to give you a best answer I can. I don't have it right now.
Giving him the input gives him an opportunity to use this
Only,
information.
that's my point.
The only way we can even leave our entrance when traffic is leaving the beach is if some nice soul lets you in, if you're going in the south direction, or when the light changes. And God forbid you want to go north when people are leaving the beach. Not without the light, no.
Why don't they take it back to the county and say, here's what we're asking for both. A roundabout or no roundabout, not this three, and let's take the majority of the three. Roundabout or no roundabout, and it's gonna be overwhelming, no roundabout. And stop wasting whatever funds they come from, whether it's the federal government, the state government, or the local government. This is a boondoggle. This is a waste. And now you're talking about another one on Midnight Pass at Heigl? I
We
mean,
have never discussed that. I haven't known
Is your
about it.
battery low?
yeah.
I know that someone saw it, but that's not what I know about.
This
We've
is
never
just-
brought it to anybody, and I've never
The
seen
vote should be
it.
roundabout or
Is
no
the battery
roundabout.
low?
I'm just
Not,
telling you.
not a
This
third
is back,
choice.
I'll have mine recorded. And then when
I don't seem to
at the end of it, you send it to
Right.
me.
I think one of the things. that-
I'm not able to do it right now.
Goes,
Yeah.
You'll have to put your
What we should
computer over
do,
here.
and
Yeah.
I'm gonna
So you
just
can
suggest
record
this,
the
because Spencer
audio.
will need to leave, and we do need to finish our dinner. We do have,
It's
I
dead.
hope you all didn't come just about traffic. We do have other good news for you, and I hope that you will be here to learn the full circle of all the things that we're working on, because we're working on a lot of things. And I don't want to miss giving you this information. So one of the things we should do is collect all of your suggestions, the questions that you have, send them to us. And we'll put them in groups where they maybe have a lot of
Remove your
consistency.
computer over
And
here.
it's the best way
No.
then to continue where
It's
you
not
can
gonna
make
work.
notes to supplement what you've been noting. Because these are important issues. And I understand about
Plug this
that.
back into where it
Again,
was.
I have no knowledge of it except for I've just seen a picture tonight. But what I'm telling you is I also lived here where there were deaths at that place, and I know people personally who lost somebody. So I understand what you're talking about. I've lived here a long time. And so I want you all to know I'm very open, as we all are, to try to do something that is safe. And it took a long time. It took, I think, 6 deaths before the state allowed a light to go there. I remember that. People were so frustrated, and we're so thankful that we got the light. So that's a good thing. So thank you for your comments on that. And so if you all will do that, we will compile this and we'll put it on our site. You can see some of the comments and some of the questions. It's the best way to go forward on this other thing. I have no practical ability to talk about what has been possibly considered. But you now have some good thoughts, I think, from people that are worried about how it's going to affect their egress, ingress, all of those things. Yeah. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Do you want me to?
Is there? Yeah. Yeah. Why don't do you want them to give any other comments about what they're going to be looking ahead to in terms of what is?
Well, there's a couple other things that are on, the talking point.
Yeah, I just, like I said, I
So
didn't see
that.
Oh, no, do you want that or-
That's fine.
Go.
So these are a couple things that we've done and are looking into. So just the top right is intersection of Heigl and Ocean, where you've got that stop sign on Ocean that goes left or whatever, and there's no stop control at Heigl. So that location there, this is something that we're looking at potentially doing, and it's called a mini roundabout. It's actually a temporary implement to try it out. It's not a permanent feature. It's molded plastic bricks that you assemble like kind of like a puzzle. They get anchored to the ground and you put some striping around it. That would look similar to what we have up there in that top right corner.
Can you stop what you're doing on the screen? We can't. see.
I'm sorry, guys. I'm having a problem because they can't see the screen. So I'm trying to get to different things. Difficult to do both chat and run the screen at the same time. Go ahead.
So that is at Heigl and Ocean. That small intersection there, that's a really tough spot. I mean, driving through, making a left turn out of there really stinks, from Ocean on the Heigl. So that's something that it's a very low cost, so to speak, as far as what it would take to implement something like that, to try it out. And if we put it in and it doesn't work out, you can just take it out fairly rapidly. And actually, we can use it somewhere else as well. So that is something we're considering, but it would actually happen. There's a drainage project that's going to happen there along that, kind of like that corner there, along Heigl, and then, I'm sorry, Ocean, and then down Heigl, to the south of Ocean. That's going to start in later this month or in May. We try to schedule it so it started after season. But that's already been awarded by the county commission, and there's some flooding issues on Banyan Drive, which is to the southeast of that, and it's really intended to reduce that flooding. It has some serious flooding in that area with no outlet to the north, so this is going to provide that. And then after that, there's also a resurfacing project that's going to come and repave Heigl out in front of ODA as well. So that all those things coming together will be done hopefully, towards the end of the year. Yes, ma'am, you had a question?
Yes, a much less expensive and a quicker solution to that ridiculous place where Heigl has no stop.
Yeah.
Would be to get some kind of a mirror type thing so that people coming to the beach can see if there's a car coming on Heigl. Right now, you really can't see. You're stopped and you hope to heaven that there's nobody coming.
It is difficult.
They don't stop. But if you can see, then people of some kind coming, and there's a sure other places have these. How we get through that? We need the same sort of thing at the junction of Siesta Drive and Heigl, because people who are coming out of North Heigl cannot see if somebody's on Siesta, and they can go get crashed. And we even have a problem walking along there. It's very basic setting. If you had some kind of a mirrored thing, it's not a real glass mirror, but you've seen those things. And there has to be a way to do that.
But this is something that, we're trying to be innovative to a certain extent. And this is one of the things, this would be the first one, right, in the county. There's plenty of roundabouts. But this is a very small area where we can try this out at a very low cost, see how well it works. I think in this situation, it should be a good solution. So that's later. We can talk more about it another time and when we have more details. That's a sketch up from our folks. The other one there, the bottom right, the parking lot, parking spaces we just put in along Ocean. You've probably seen those. That was actually county crews that did all the construction on that. It took a few months to get those done, but those are all pervious pavers out there. And so there isn't any additional runoff or anything made. And there's actually going to be we just installed the power. So there's going to be an electric vehicle charging station there for two ports at that location at the very west end of that lot next to the ADA spot. So that was actually very successful for those spots. And if we go to the next slide, I think I have some more information on that. So those are some things. The parking lot we just constructed down at the end of by the 7-Eleven on Midnight Pass. That we built that. We've gotten into agreement with the Siesta Key Chamber of Commerce, and they are leasing that parking lot from us. There was a lot of concerns about it being a private parking lot that would lead to people going to what's at Sarasota. They have some private roads down there. Have some concerns about people walking through there. So that's leased to the chamber. They're going to be using that for employee parking. So take some employees out of their actual formal parking lots and put them into that. I think that's got about 48 spaces. The Heigl Avenue curve, we're waiting on materials. We're going to put new signage and some of those illuminated reflective pavement markers through that curve and some flashing chevrons that go through it. It's been an ongoing issue to get that constructed. We had some state money for it, and that was going to be too difficult to actually work with. So we're working on some swaps with the state to get that work done soon. Let's see.
Is that, excuse me, is that
Yes.
midnight pass?
No, that's Heigl up there where it takes that turn just west of the bridge. That's Siesta, that big, almost 90-degree bend.
Yeah.
There's a lot of concern there with people who miss it or whatever. There's also some drainage improvements we're gonna do to make sure it doesn't hold water on the inside of that curve. The Ocean Boulevard curve, we did add the illuminated, pavement markings through there. If you've been through there at night, you should see that curve just coming out of the village here is where you got the speed feedback sign. There's some lit RPMs that go through that curve to make it more noticeable at nighttime. Has anybody seen that? Anybody?
Yes.
No? Yeah, you've seen it? All right, good. I haven't actually been through there at night. So hopefully that is improving that curve to make it more noticeable. I mentioned the drainage improvements. And the last thing, if you can go back to the previous slide,
Okay,
there's a speed cushion we're looking at. So here on the bottom of this, you see those two little red rectangles coming in and out of the village. Catherine has had some concerns about people speeding up into the village and then speeding up out of the village. So we have actually in hand a couple speed cushions, and they're low profile. They're not speed bumps. They're just there enough to give you a deflection in the roadway to make you slow down a little bit. The good thing about these, the design on these, is they don't slow down fire apparatus. They're spaced just enough to allow to catch regular vehicles, but the wheelbase of a fire truck or an ambulance, they're just wide enough to allow them to pass unimpeded. That's one of the big concerns about speed bumps, speed cables, is that it slows down response time for fire EMS. And these are going to be put in, and probably in the near term, we wanted to get done with the parking spaces first. And there's going to be some more landscaping that goes in around the parking spaces as well that we just put in there. But they're full. They seem to be working okay. They're deep, so they don't impact traffic. And then just a couple more things. I think I had some supplemental. That's the parking spaces we put in. Those bricks, they're about 50 pounds each, and they're all individually laid. And that was a lot of work for our folks, but it turned out really nice on both sides of the road. Go ahead to the next one. So those are the internally illuminated RPMs that actually light up. They're solar powered. They're internally batteries that charge during the day and power on at night. So that's an example of what those are. This is where the curve is.
oops, sorry.
The Siesta. No, that's fine. Good. That's so some of the same things are going to be added there, and some better signage and some removal of some of that extra asphalt. Go ahead. So that's the project stuff. Anybody have any questions on those things there? Yes, sir.
2 points. Heigl and Ocean. The sign there says traffic on Heigl doesn't stop.
Right.
They don't know it's Heigl. It should say cross traffic doesn't stop.
Okay.
The next important thing on your curve, where you're having a problem, today's headlights don't illuminate those arrows. They're too hot.
They're going to be lit now. So the ones we're putting in, they're going to have those blinker lights around the outside of it and blink in sequence. So they'll be lit at nighttime. So that'll be a much, we did that somewhere else down South County, and it's amazing the difference that the visibility of those things coming through.
Hey, Spencer, I got a quick question. This one's quick. The village parking, we talked about it maybe a year ago, is 3-hour parking. And I think if we could manage that, we could pick up triple our parking spaces. Is there any? Yeah.
That's it, though. This is your last question. Go ahead,
No,
Spencer.
don't tell me it's my last question, Gene. Stop that and please let him answer.
All right, well, I'll let him answer, but I'm being asked not to let anybody come in.
I'm not sure about the 3-hour parking thing. I don't know how that's enforced, who might be in charge of that. But I hear you. And I have to take a look. We have to take another look at that. I'm not sure of. I know there's no parking maids or whatever that are out there to enforce any kind of term limit.
Yeah, I just want to put it back on your radar. I don't want paid parking, just the 3-hour parking for, time limit, I think would turn over a tremendous amount of parking for the businesses,
Gotcha.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you, Gene.
Will the roundabout be done before spring next year, 24 rather?
Based on the current schedule, yes.
And Ocean Road is failing. Any plans to redo that?
Ocean along the beach roads, between the beach and here.
Yes.
Yeah, we know, and
I'm sure.
it's getting a little bouncy in there, right?
Yeah.
So I need to check on what the resurfacing schedule is for that, but if it's not, I'm gonna try to get it added to that other roundabout project. The state's actually gonna come through with the resurfacing project. When we transferred, now these are all county roads up here now. We actually transferred, Midnight Pass Road all the way from 41 to 41. It's now a county road, but the state is still gonna come in and resurface from Stickney Point up to Shadow Long Way. And they're gonna be doing sidewalk replacements, about a third of that, and then the shoulders will all be replaced. And the signage will be upgraded with pedestrian crosswalks. So if on either one of those projects, more than likely the county's project, if we don't have it in our current plan, I'm gonna see about getting it added. This is a simple project, yeah.
Real quick, I thought the reason you had beach like that was on purpose.
It is, it's a base that's failing out there, so that'd be somewhat of a significant project to replace the base there too. Yes, sir.
Just a point, I think, of clarification, Catherine mentioned it, is that there is a roundabout, from what I read on the transportation study, for Heigl to Midnight Pass, in that the area of Boyd Park. That was given medium priority, it said, which means that it's sometime between the next 5 to 10 years is when that's gonna be, or am I?
It's something we've looked at just conceptually as where, because traffic on the key, right? I mean,
Yeah.
at that signal, when there's a lot of wasted green and red time at that signal, because usually there's one approach that has nobody at it, but you're still stopping traffic to let it through. And so that's one of the things we thought about is, so if you have a roundabout there, there's no signal, there's no wait time for any of the approaches, it just keeps moving. But I hear what you're saying about the signal and how good it's been at reducing accidents at that location. So it's definitely something we take a look at before getting any further down the road and just conceptually, where might the roundabout work in the county?
Well, the only other comment, the last comment I'll make.
I'm gonna hold you to it.
Me too.
If you consider, okay, that intersection there, right at Boyd Park, with that triangle there, and continuation of Heigl and Midnight Pass. With the way it's been this year, with the volume of people and cars, etc., and I live there and I can attest to that, it's impossible to get off of Siesta and it's impossible to get on Siesta. And that traffic light, I would say, is probably working better than any roundabout could do. Because in a roundabout, you would have enormous congestion of people, number one, within the roundabout, people trying to get out of the roundabout and people trying to get into it. And I think that a traffic light represents a much simpler solution to what that is, because the sheer volume of transportation that's passing in front of my eyes, I just say, I can't believe this. This is insane.
Okay.
And the problem is you've got 2-lane roads, Heigl and Midnight Pass, and the 1 or 2 lanes going into the village. So,
Well, let's see how it works at beach at midnight. Then maybe that might change your attitude
Gotta
about
stop
roundabouts.
it.
I doubt it, but we'll see what happens.
Okay, guys, I think we're getting close. The bells have already rang. We had 6 more things on the agenda.
6 o'clock is when we usually adjourn, and Spencer has stayed
Yes.
plenty of time, and I think that it sounds to me like you directed what the agenda was. I did my best to create one, and it doesn't seem like there's going to be commentary on some of the other things tonight, because I do like to get people out of here because they need to go home and have supper. So how about if we get questions, comments? I mean, we'll get them into a organized way and send it in, and we can get some of that to you. And I think the other part of it is you can read some of our comments on these other topics, and you can see them on our site. And it was good news. I want you to know we've worked really hard on some other things, and I do want you to know about it. And I don't know that we have any comments from Save Siesta Key. People had asked about whether or not Tracy would be here, but I don't see her. So I think she's not making it tonight. Bob, anything else you felt was important to tell them about the work we can bring on the hotel situation?